Pay close attention. The news you are about to see is fulfilling Bible prophecy.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Israel Hawkins, where we're going to talk a little bit about a virus that's taking place. It's kind of making a resurgence, but this particular virus starts off looking like a cold, but then it can actually lead to paralysis in children. We're going to look at the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hezbollah that's been raging on now for almost a year, and North Korea's latest missile test, and of course we're going to take a look at who they're forming partnerships with as well. But to start us off, a strange respiratory virus that has polio-like symptoms is making a resurgence yet once again. Enterovirus D68 is a virus connected to severe neurological damage in children. Experts detected a spike in the virus in wastewater samples. The virus can lead to a condition called AFM, which can cause sudden paralysis in the arms and legs, most commonly, like we said, in children. Part of what makes this virus so deadly is the way that it presents itself as just a common cold, but then all of a sudden breaks into this deadly virus that impacts children in a negative way.
Well, in 2014, the virus left a large number of children with paralysis. The virus was somewhat reduced during the pandemic lockdown, but started to grow again after restrictions were lifted. Now, what's most frustrating for parents and doctors alike is that science still hasn't developed a cure, and even with the best treatment, children who are affected, like we said earlier, can be left with lifelong debilitating disabilities, seriously alternating the course of their physical life.
Well, if you remember in our last broadcast, we showed you how Israel was being blamed for the deaths caused by exploding two-way radios, and cell phones, and pagers. Well, Israel struck hundreds of Hezbollah rocket barrels inside Lebanon before Hezbollah could really get heavy on their response. Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah gave his much anticipated speech after that event, pointing the blame on Israel and saying that the attacks could lead to a declaration of a wider war. Well, a wider war has many in the global community concerned for the events in the Middle East being spread out further and ever growing since the October 2023 attacks.
Well, Nasrallah in his speech accused Israel of crossing many red lines and added that the exploding devices caused a severe blow to the organization. He also vowed that Israel would not achieve its goal of having displaced Israelis returned until the violence and occupation in Gaza and the occupied West Bank ends. Now, while he was speaking, Israeli war fighter jets performed high-speed, low passes over Beirut, causing several loud sonic booms, sending people on the ground screaming in terror and running for protective cover.
Well, more on this recent attack in this video, courtesy of ABC News. Take a look.
Breaking news, Israel says its military is launching strikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. The new attack comes after a second wave of device explosions across Lebanon and Syria. Hezbollah members' walkie-talkies detonated yesterday, killing at least 25 people and injuring hundreds more. Israel hasn't claimed responsibility for those attacks, but officials tells ABC News that the country is behind the operation. It comes just a day after thousands of Hezbollah pagers exploded across Lebanon. Now, Hezbollah's leader says these attacks amount to a declaration of war. Foreign correspondent Marcus Moore joins me from Beirut. Marcus, what's it like there right now?
Diane, it's very tense right now. A few moments ago, as Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, was giving a speech, fighter jets were flying low over the downtown Beirut where we are, and there were two very large sonic booms. These booms, as we have seen over the past many months, are meant to send a message to Hezbollah and others here in Lebanon. And all of this is happening, as you were just reporting, that there have been new strikes reported in southern Lebanon, just as Hassan Nasrallah was speaking. The IDF saying that these strikes were targeted at Hezbollah infrastructure and were in response, we understand, from strikes that Hezbollah was carrying out in northern Israel. This has been part of the daily tit for tat that we have watched unfold, and also adding, Diane, to the concern that we have been talking about for so many months about the potential for this to spread into a wider conflict.
And on that point, Marcus, Hezbollah's leader was already calling it a declaration of war, talking about these device explosions. Now, with Israeli airstrikes added to that, where do you see this going from here?
Well, I mean, I think where we are right now is we're at that position where the concerns are very real, and in every sense, there has already been a war being waged in southern Lebanon and northern Israel. We've seen these attacks going back and forth. The concern is that it could grow into something much bigger. The concern is that it could grow into something much bigger. And you mentioned Nasrallah talking about the explosions, the simultaneous explosions being declarations of war. In his speech, he made the point that these were devices that were set off in civilian areas. He said they were detonated without any concern for who might be holding those devices or anyone around them. So really trying to make the point that what they have watched unfold here, he said, crossed all lines, all red lines, both legal and moral. And so, Diane, that will only add to the tension and the risk of this escalating even more.
Katan, we actually have another video to show, still along the same line of what's taking place in Israel there with this fighting. This next video, courtesy of Al Jazeera, focuses on Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah's speech in response to the exploding electronic devices and the long-reaching effect the attacks had beyond just the Hezbollah fighters.
Hezbollah's leader blamed Israel for Tuesday and Wednesday's attacks on civilians and confirmed that many of the detonations particularly affected medical staff.
By this attack, the Israeli enemy have crossed all the red lines, turning a blind eye to everything, ethical, legal, or human limits. Some of the devices detonated in hospitals simply because the pages are carried by medical staff. Pharmacies, shops, private vehicles, public roads, where thousands of civilians, including women and children, are present. They are willing to target Hezbollah fighters, yet they attacked the civilian population.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the concern, like he stated in his speech, among those in the humanitarian groups, is that, hey, you're targeting Hezbollah, but it's affecting many other people as well. Many innocent victims are, falling in harm's way or being killed as a result of these attacks on Hezbollah. Right, and as you mentioned there, some were carrying them in the hospitals when they went off. So, these are medical personnel, and generally speaking, they're supposed to not be included in these wars, but, as you mentioned, there's a lot of casualties beyond just the fighters. That's right, sad. Well, there is a clear tit-for-tat between Israel and Hezbollah, which is intensified with the major pager and radio detonations that took place in Lebanon. Hundreds of unguided rockets have been fired into Israel in a great show of force by the Israeli military command as airstrikes continue, and now a target strike into the capital city of Beirut. But how far is Israel willing to push its neighbors to the north? Well, listen to this next video from Sky News as they ponder this question.
What do we know about these latest strikes? Yeah, good afternoon, Kamali. I mean, there's been a lot of tit for tat going on, hasn't there? Explosions earlier in the week with the comms yesterday evening, IDF airstrikes, 100 Hezbollah rocket launchers, potentially 1,000 rockets, a 2-hour period of attacks where it wasn't just weapons, it was ammunition stores and everything. The Israeli Air Force have actually been continuing to conduct air patrols across the skies of southern Lebanon. We've heard sonic booms, flares being released, clear show of force. And then Hezbollah earlier on today launched this retaliatory attack of 140 rockets. They were the Katyusha rockets, so they're the unguided ones. Probably the Iron Dome system would have shot most of them down. And then we're hearing about this targeted strike into Beirut. More about that once we know more details.
But I suppose that would be an escalation when it's striking the capital city like this with an airstrike, if that's the case.
It might be. I think when you're into the escalation, it always goes back now to why are we seeing this happen now? And part of that is, if you ever since the 7th of October, the attacks by Hamas, Israel's been largely focused on the Gaza Strip, working systemic down from north to south, clearing out the area there. Iran is a supporter of Hamas, has wanted to be helping them, and therefore by distracting the Israelis, they've been doing continuous attacks to the north of the country to try to force a two-front war. In other words, take the pressure off Hamas. Well, now, Prime Minister Netanyahu has turned around and said, actually, we're largely finished in the Gaza, and he's now pivoting his forces up to the north. We've seen the fighters operating to the north. We've had video footage emerge of tanks and armoured personnel carriers being moved up, and also a lot of troops being moved up. So the main effort appears to be moving up towards Hezbollah, and all of this is not coincidence timing. The timing of the attack on the communications setup for Hezbollah, which has destroyed the command and control system, is all a demonstration of IDF capability and an intent to actually tackle the Hezbollah threat. And that's the context within which this strike against a target in Beirut is happening.
So what happens next then?
Well, the real commentary is whether we're on the brink of war, isn't it? That seems to be the worry. Now, tensions are escalating at the moment, but it's pretty clear Lebanon doesn't want to see an escalation. And what is really interesting, the first time I was asked about these 140 rockets coming across, we were expecting Hassan Nasrallah to do something after the attack yesterday. 140 rockets that are unguided, that Israel can shoot out the skies, at the bottom end of what we might have thought. The memories will serve from 2006, the last big war that happened in the region. IDF are maybe the dominant military capability in the region, but it's a war that they find really difficult to fight. If you actually look at a map of the region, they surrounded Gaza, therefore they can control the flow of weapons. If you look to the north, in Lebanon, Israel can't control the supply of arms to Hezbollah. Iran can continue to pour those supplies in. Therefore, it's a war they can't really win, and therefore it's a war they probably don't want to get involved in. So Israel's almost certainly doing a clear demonstration of intent, a clear show of force, putting pressure on Hassan Nasrallah. But I suspect what we're seeing is a slight moderation of actual activity. And let's be clear, the key to this is not up there. The key to this is about a ceasefire in Gaza, because until you get that, until you get the hostages released, Iran has been really clear it is going to continue to fan the flames of this until the ceasefire is in place.
Just more details come across the wires. Hezbollah are now saying that Al-Manar TV, which is their television station, that one person is dead and 14 wounded in that strike. And also being reported now by the Reuters news agency is that the target of that strike was a Hezbollah commander, Ibrahim Akil. That's according to Israel Army Radio, who are citing security sources.
Well, as you can see, Katan, Israel is not slowing down, continuing their advance. And in fact, this next video that we're going to show you is courtesy of CBS Evening News and shows another airstrike by Israel, which killed a high-ranking Hezbollah commander. Please pay close attention.
We begin with yet another escalation in the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon, its neighbor to the north. Israel's military says it took out about a dozen top Hezbollah members in a rare airstrike in Lebanon's capital city today. That includes a top commander, Ibrahim Akil. The U.S. labeled him a specially designated global terrorist and had been offering a $7 million reward for any information leading to his arrest in connection with the terrorist attacks in 1983 that killed hundreds of Americans in Beirut. CBS's Chris Livesay leads us off tonight from Tel Aviv. Chris, good evening.
Good evening, Jerika. Tensions are boiling here in Israel and in Lebanon. The U.S. is calling on both sides to de-escalate, but today's attacks, following those exploding Hezbollah pagers and walkie-talkies this week, are moving the conflict closer to a full-blown war. Chaos and confusion tore through the heart of Beirut's southern suburbs today, Hezbollah's stronghold, following an Israeli airstrike. First responders desperately combed through the rubble of gutted apartments to find survivors, rushing them to the hospital. The target, Hezbollah Commander Ibrahim Akil, wanted by the U.S. for his role in 2 bombings in 1983 that killed more than 300 people at the U.S. Embassy in Beirut and the U.S. Marine Corps barracks. Israel's military spokesman called Akil the head of Hezbollah's elite Radwan force and claimed the strike killed 10 other Hezbollah operatives. Hezbollah confirmed Akil's death, the latest in a series of severe, unprecedented blows.
Wow, I mean, you think about how much, Israel really wanted him having a $7 million on his head for any information leading to his arrest or capture. Well, North Korea has carried out many missile tests in the past, but now they're changing course a bit. The most recent missile test had an island target. By and large, North Korea conducts missile testing with targets ending in the sea. So this latest test does suggest North Korea is gaining confidence in its guidance systems, feeling secure the missile would land at its intended target.
Well, North Korean state-controlled news has released images of the launch and its leader, Kim Jong-un, with his military leaders admiring their handiwork. Now, the missile was shown to land on a hillside in North Korea, and we should note another difference with this rocket is that they used is a hard-hitting, it has a hard-hitting 4.5-ton conventional warhead, showing North Korea's powerful capabilities to potential underground targets. And as we talked a lot about in our previous news, these bunker busting bombs, that's what they're referring to there, is the ability to hit a target deep in ground where they would think you could try to take cover and be safe, but now North Korea is developing or already has that capability.
Yeah, because those underground, safe houses, they're not just underneath the dirt, they're usually concrete reinforced places, and these weapons that they have, this artillery, I mean, it can just plow right through that in many cases. Well, moving to the western part of Asia now and the conflict with Ukraine, Russia is continuing to focus on fortifying its bonds with its allies, Iran, North Korea, and China. In a treaty of the nations, North Korea has announced it is forming a nuclear force construction policy so they can increase their stockpile of nuclear weapons to new and greater heights. Kim Jong-un is focused on ensuring the security and rights of his country through this plan. He knows that a strong military force is needed to stand up to the United States and its allies. Well, as we've mentioned before, of course, there are no winners with war. And North Korea, not only like we just saw, are kind of honing in on their missile targeting capabilities, but they're looking to increase not just their weapon cache, but nuclear weapon cache.
Right, and as you just mentioned there, that, Russia sees that it has to strengthen its military to be able to fight against the West and its allies. Well, China realizes that, Iran realizes that, North Korea, and all of them are teaming together because they know it's going to take all of them because the United States is a very powerful military nation. But, of course, if all these other ones team up, that's going to be quite the adversarial foe there for the United States and its allies.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we're not really taking into consideration is all the allies of the United States as well as those countries as well. Countries are tired of Big Brother being the big bully.
That's right. Well, if you'd like to learn more about these stories, contact the House of Yahweh. When you do, don't forget to request your free copy of the monthly newsletter and Prophetic Word magazine. Here's how.
To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. You can visit them at any of their websites by going to Yahweh.com, YisraelHawkins.com, or Yahweh'sBranch.com. You can visit our website by going to YPNnews.com. You can email the House of Yahweh at info@Yahweh.com. And for all calls outside the United States, please dial the number on your screen. And don't forget the Israel Says and Ask Israel programs available online 24/7. You can find those programs by just going to YisraelSays.com or AskYisrael.com.
Well, don't go anywhere. Up next is another classic message from Yisrael Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
And I'm Katan Alexander.
Thanks for watching.